Now, joining us live in NC Continental Prime tonight from the nation's capital, Abuja, to take this conversation further, we have Salahuddin Hashimu, a security expert. One welcome to you, Salahuddin.
Thank you very much for having me.
Now, the recent United States Embassy terror alert in Nigeria has continued to generate mixed feelings. What's your immediate reaction to this?
Yeah, I think the first thing to ask ourselves is to interrogate the role of intelligence to our national security. And of course, if we're able to establish that, then we ask, how does intelligence also contribute to security decision-making process? And you might also want to interrogate further to ask, what is intelligence if it cannot develop and forecast what will happen, and of course, in no possible time? And I think it is important to also process the fact that information and intelligence are two different things. Intelligence are a product of collation, evaluation, analysis, integration, and interpretation of a particular information then that is processed and further disseminated. And to also let us know very clearly that United States Embassy will not take for granted and issue such kind of intelligence without any form of evidence to show for it. And that is to suggest that we have three kinds of intelligence. One is strategic intelligence, tactical intelligence, and of course, counterintelligence. And the United States has actually proven over the years that they are very robust in these three pillars of intelligence apparatus and architecture. So I think it is important to be able to, first of all, interrogate the veracity of this intelligence and, of course, see how we can work together to be able to align our thoughts and, of course, use that to be able to safeguard the lives and property of the people. I think it is important to also commend government for that proactive step, which means that it was valid. Then they have also started making arrests. So I think it is important that we begin as a nation to sit down and understand how our intelligence agency can actually be very strategic in contributing strategic thinking to the thing that we see happening in decision making. It will go a very long way to help us in taking decisions rather than being reactive. We'll be more proactive.
Now, Salahuddin, Nigeria's Minister of Information, Lai Mohammed, has condemned the development, saying the action taken by the United States was undiplomatic. Do you think he was justified in saying this? And what are the appropriate channels in communicating this sort of intelligence report or alert?
I think the fact is that intelligence can either be gathered openly or secretly. And that, for me, is the reason why once anything comes to us as a country, we quickly want to debunk it and make it look like there is a politicization of that process. And I think that is not very correct. If you have acquired or collated and evaluated an information and you have processed them into an intelligence, it is very important for you to be able to share them at different levels to ensure that people are beginning to get very responsive. But I feel very disappointed that the president would actually take and use those information for granted. Look, in developed climes, there are two ways you gather information. One is that people even procure information. Some other place, you have to collate them. And it tells you to what extent information is so important to translate them into intelligence gathering. And because for us as a country, we have actually commercialized our intelligence gathering processes, what we intend to see all the time is the ability to pay for logistics and roll out tanks rather than the proactive measures and approaches that does not even allow us to get to that particular stage. And intelligence and developed climes have come to see it, that it is cheaper for you to invest in intelligence rather than just rolling out tanks and, of course, setting up theaters of operations. In the last 1 year, Nigerian Army has set up over 55 different theaters of operations. And if our intelligence agencies were robust, we would have actually cut down on those number of theaters. If we cut down on that theaters, it will have cut down on the cost of setting up those theaters. It will cut off cost of governance, it will cost off the logistic support, and it will also give our men the ability to attend to other stuff. But unfortunately, what we do is actually wait until the situation is bad. Then, of course, we begin to roll out tanks in terms of response. That for me is not the best way. I think intelligence is about how we process, how we become tactical, how we become strategic, and of course, how we become very much at the center of communicating them to those who are actually involved.
Now, Salahuddin, back to the United States of America. Apparently, the Nigerian Minister of Information is not the only one angry with the United States. The South African President, Ramaphosa, is also angry with this. He did talk about the United States causing panic. You also mentioned earlier during our conversation that the United States has a robust intelligence architecture. But just yesterday in the United States of America, there was a school shooting and about 4 people were killed. So why is the United States still facing terror problems in its mass shootings in its own background? And let's not also forget the United States issuing false intelligence about Saddam Hussein possessing weapons of mass destruction. They went into Iraq as a result of this intelligence, and we do know the consequences of that. Millions of dollars lost, thousands of Iraqi lives lost, and also American troops. So because it's the United States, does it mean their intelligence would always be credible?
Oh, yes, there are short, medium, and long-term intelligence requirements. Okay, and they are also at different level, and they are at policy and decision-making level. And of course, this is, but to be very honest with you, it is not about the fact that it is United States. United States has actually proven, and that is a global justification. But yes, in every environment, no matter how fortified, there are always isolated cases. Okay, it is not because the United States has said it, but of course, the government itself has actually responded, working together with some of the intelligence units within the embassy, and they have made some arrests, which actually brings credibility to that particular information. And that is number one. Number two is the fact that the gun law in the US and what we have here are two different things. There are huge proliferation of arms in that particular society. And of course, because it is not entirely controlled, as it were, you have situations like mass shootings occurring on a regular basis. How have we seen in recent past, other than what we have in 9/11, a terrorist attack on the soil of the US? So it tells you very clearly that they are working there will be always local isolated situation. And of course, on the issue of Saddam Hussein, you and I know too well that it was basically not about, it was a deliberate political insurrection, deliberate effort to be able to invade. And theories and of course outcomes have suggested that afterwards. So it was simply the political interest within the states that suggests that, look, it was not important for them to take that step. And I tell you one thing, taking that step was wrong, but it was also an attempt to nip in the bud the potential deployment of terrorism from that particular area to other parts of the world.
And then experts will tell you that it's open to debate, but we will discuss that some other time, some other platform. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, Salahuddin Ashimu, security expert in Nigeria's capital, Abuja. Thanks for joining us on NC Continental Prime.
Thank you very much for having me.